In February 1971, in a small town in the north of England called Hexham, two children dug up what no one thought would become one of the most mysterious phenomena of the 20th century. From an ordinary garden, people found two small stone objects, shaped like two human heads. One had a childish face, deep round eyes, a low nose, and a tight mouth. The other was older, with a pointed chin, a prominent forehead, and a gaze that seemed to be watching someone. Both were only the size of a fist, heavy, cold, and smooth. The people at that time simply called them the Hexham Heads. The story begins on a quiet afternoon. The town of Hexham is a place where life has changed little in decades. The cobblestone streets are narrow, the walls are covered with moss, and the houses are low, with tiled roofs sloping towards the grass. People still followed the same routine: mornings in the fields, afternoons in the pub, evenings, closing the windows before the north wind blew. But from the day the two children brought the heads home, something strange began to happen at Hexham. Number 3, Reed Avenue, where the Robson boys lived with their mother, became the focus. At first, it was just a few small incidents: dishes falling off shelves, lights flickering even though the fuses were good, footsteps on the stairs when everyone was asleep. The mother thought it was mice or the wind, but when she saw the chair slowly turning in the middle of the living room without anyone touching it, fear began to creep into her every breath. One night, she woke to find her children's toys lined up on the floor, each one exactly 2 inches apart, and in the middle, two stone heads neatly placed, as if placed to watch. Neighbors also began to report seeing a shadowy figure standing outside the Robsons' windows, even though no one was inside. Some claimed to hear children's laughter echoing through the walls, and a light tap on the glass as if someone were knocking on the door from outside. One morning, a woman walking past the house was startled to see two heads sitting on the windowsill, wet with dew, facing the street, their eyes following each person who passed by. Rumors spread quickly. A local archaeologist was called in. He thought they were ancient artifacts dating back hundreds of years, possibly related to ancient Celtic beliefs, a time when people believed souls could inhabit stones. But when they were examined, the results were contradictory. The stone did not match any ancient material known in the area. There was something strange in the structure, a mixture of soil, charcoal ash, and a small amount of calcium. Another researcher suggested they were crushed bones, mixed with limestone, and molded into the shape of human heads. Then the phenomena became more intense. The mother said that several times, when she walked out into the garden, she felt someone walking close behind her, even though no one was there when she turned back. The back door was left wide open in the middle of the night. The water in the tap turned on by itself, and small handprints appeared on the walls in dried mud. The family fled the house in fear, leaving the two heads with the local authorities. From there, they passed through many hands, and each person who touched them said they heard sounds, sometimes a rolling sound, sometimes a faint whisper right next to their ear. In the midst of the chaos, a professor named Anne Ross, an expert in Celtic culture, received the two heads for analysis. She believed they were folk relics that could contain spiritual energy. But just a few days after bringing them home, the family began to experience strange phenomena. One night, while her daughter was sleeping, the door to her room swung open, and a creature described as tall, half man, half beast, walked through. It had a wolf-like head, broad shoulders, wet gray fur, and walked upright on 2 legs. The girl screamed, and Mrs. Ross ran to find the door open, and the two heads rolled on the floor, facing each other. The story spread. The press dubbed it the Hexham Wolf, and from then on, No one dared to keep the two heads in the house for too long. When they were returned to the laboratory, the two objects were placed in an airtight glass case. But the cleaning staff said that each morning, their position was different. One of the two heads had a small crack around the eye socket, as if someone had squeezed it hard. One night, the museum guard claimed to have seen a shadowy figure moving in the closed room. He heard a rolling sound, as if something heavy had fallen to the floor, and when he turned on the lights, the two heads were in the middle of the room, a few meters from the glass case. No one could explain it. People began to make many theories. Some said the two heads were just a joke, handmade by someone in the area. In 1974, a man named Craigie, who lived near Robson, claimed he had made two cement heads for his children to play with and left them in the garden. But subsequent chemical analysis showed the material did not match any modern cement. The question of their true origin remains unanswered. After 1976, the records of the Hexam heads were gradually closed. The two artifacts were stored in a research archive at a university in the south of England and then lost. No one knew where they were moved. Some said they were reburied in the old land. Others believed a private collector had bought them. However, what haunted people was not just the story of the two objects, but the series of phenomena that continued to appear in the places where they were kept. A museum employee, many years later, said that in the storage room where the two heads were kept, even after all the objects were moved, he still felt someone watching. Security cameras sometimes recorded a blurry figure flitting across the corner of the frame, an unidentified shape. Metal doors sometimes opened in the middle of the night. The alarm sounded without any trace of intrusion. Technical experts confirmed that the system was working properly. In Hexam, the town where it all began, people still tell the story as part of a collective memory. Some of the old houses are abandoned. In some, people have found small, round stones, roughly carved into the shape of human faces. No one knows who put them there or when. Every year, in the winter, someone still hears a light tapping on the window near midnight. When they open it, there is no one, just a small mud print, the print of a child's hand. In the research community, the Hexam heads remains one of those special cases where the lines between archaeology, spirituality, and psychology blur. Many scholars believe that it is the collective belief that gives the story its power. But there are also those who remain silent, believing that something truly ancient lies beneath the soil of Northumberland, something that has been awakened by the digging of children's hands. In 1984, in a brief interview with a local radio station, an independent investigator said he had been given access to two identical objects in a private warehouse in southern England. He was not allowed to film, but only took two blurry photographs. In the first, the heads were placed side by side on a wooden table, the yellow light illuminating the deep eye sockets. In the second, taken just seconds later, one of the heads was turned from a different angle, facing the camera. The photo was never released to the public, but the reporter said that when zoomed in, the photographer's shadowy reflection could be seen in the dark eye sockets, and that there appeared to be another figure standing directly behind him. To this day, no one knows where the heads are. There is no official record of their destruction or transfer. All attempts to find them have failed. But what chilled researchers was a small detail. In the museum's property list, next to the Hexam heads, two specimens, there was a faded pencil note. One retained, one relocated. No one knew where relocated meant. Some believe the remains came to America in the 1972 in a shipment of folk artifacts sold to a private collector on Long Island. No one has verified this, but a few years later, there was a house there famous for its paranormal activity, the Lutz family home in Amityville. In unofficial records, there is a story that when cleaning out the basement, a round stone object with a distorted face was found, but it quickly disappeared after a cleaning. If that is true, then perhaps the curse of Hexham has never ended. It has simply crossed the sea to another place, waiting to be reawakened. The story of the two stone heads of Hexham has no end. It lies somewhere between archaeology and fear, between evidence and belief. What remains after half a century is not the object, but the feeling that once people dig deep enough, they will not only find Earth, but also touch the memory of something that existed before them. And sometimes, that memory still looks back. In December 1975, on the shores of Long Island, New York, a two-story White House with curved windows shaped like human eyes overlooking the Amityville River was sold for an unusually low price. 6 months earlier, in this very house, 6 members of the same family had been shot to death in their sleep. The eldest son, Ronald DeFeo Jr., was convicted of killing his parents, 2 brothers and 2 sisters. No one understood why, during the shooting, none of the remaining 6 woke up or resisted. When the police arrived, the house was still silent, with no signs of a struggle, except for the clock ticking steadily. The house was at 112 Ocean Avenue, 6 bedrooms, a large garage, a paved driveway, and a small dock overlooking the calm water. To many, it was a dream home. But to the people of Amityville, it was a wound. That winter, with snow covering the roof, George and Kathy Lutz, a young couple with 3 children, signed a purchase agreement for $80,000, less than a third of its true value. They believed the past could be buried, and the house could start over. 3 days after moving in, neighbors said they had no longer seen the lights in the Lutz house go out at night. The lights in the upstairs windows stayed dim all night, sometimes flickering, sometimes red as if filtered through a mist. Kathy's diary entry reads, "The house does not sleep." At first, the incidents were minor. Windows opened by themselves even though they were locked. A sweet, rotten meat smell wafted down the stairs. The attic door rattled as if someone were knocking from inside. George began waking up at 3:15 a.m. every night for no apparent reason, and when he looked out the window, he said he could see shadows moving across the backyard. The temperature inside the house was always colder than outside. When they lit the fireplace, the flames would go out suddenly, leaving white smoke that clung to the ceiling like a human figure. On the 5th day, a priest, a friend of Kathy's, came to bless the house. He stood in the 2nd floor bedroom, opened the Bible, and then hurried away without saying anything. In a recording later found, his voice trembled, saying simply, "I heard voices telling me to get out of there, immediately." From there, things escalated. George began to have irrational anger, staying up many nights staring at the extinguished fireplace, saying he heard someone's heart beating in the chimney. Kathy had dreams of people lying motionless on the bed, blood soaking the sheets, and woke up with bruises on her wrists. Green tar streaks appeared on the walls like thick blood. In the youngest child's room, the walls smelled like dead animals, but no cause was found. Once, while cleaning the basement, George discovered a red wall hidden behind a wooden panel, a small room that wasn't in the blueprints. Inside, the walls were bright red, the floor sticky, and there was a strong smell of rust. The police memo later described the scene when they were called. No signs of forced entry, no gas, no electrical leaks. But there was one strange thing: a small handprint on the upper floor window that didn't match the prints of any of the family members. Around the same time, George Lutz received a strange, unaddressed package. Inside was a heavy object, wrapped in old tar paper. He dumped it in the basement, thinking it was a joke. When the Lutzes left after only 28 days in Amityville, the police searched the house and found the package torn. An investigator's diary entry read, "Inside was a gray, spherical stone object, roughly carved in the shape of a human face. The object was cold, and the material was unidentifiable." The final handwritten note read, "Sealed, sent for storage." But when the files were released years later, the object was not listed. Paranormal investigators were called in. One of them, Dr. Stephen Kaplan, noted that the house's thermometers and magnetometers were behaving strangely. The hands of the clocks were constantly spinning. Infrared photographs showed a low-temperature, humanoid figure standing in the corner of the stairwell. In one famous photograph, a bright-eyed child is seen peering out of an empty bedroom. But the list of personnel that day did not show any children. When interviewed years later, George Lutz said that the scariest thing was not the physical phenomenon, but the feeling of being controlled. He said he felt like he was no longer himself. One night he woke up with his hand on a hammer, not remembering why. Kathy dreamed of faces on the ceiling, including a strange one, thin, pockmarked, with a high forehead, like the face on an ancient stone statue. In her notes, the only line that had been crossed out several times was, "It came from somewhere else, not from here." When the family left on the 28th day, they left behind almost all of their belongings. The real estate agent who came in to clean the house said that in the living room, all the objects were placed at a 45-degree angle, as if someone had intentionally adjusted them to correct their orientation. In particular, on the floor next to the fireplace, there was a circle of white powder with a dark circle in the middle of it, shaped like a human head. No one took responsibility for explaining it. The press at the time called this event Amityville Horror, the Amityville Nightmare. It became one of the most famous cases in America, lasting for decades, dividing the world into two camps: those who believed it was a hoax, and those who believed that something really resided in the house. But in hundreds of articles, dozens of books, a small detail that few people mentioned: in the minutes of the seizure of the Lutz property, there was a handwritten, faded ink, "Stonehead, unclaimed, disposed." No one knew what it was, and the original records had disappeared. When researchers returned to the house in 1977, they noticed a strange change. In a basement wall, amid the old cement, there was a faint circular engraving. Inside were two small holes like human eyes. It was not clear who had engraved it, or when. A geologist took samples and found that the rock contained a similar ratio of calcium to ash to a specimen recorded in the archaeological record at Hexham in northern England. The results were never officially published. Years later, after the house had changed hands, people said they heard a light rolling sound on the basement floor at night, and each morning, dust in the living room formed two small, round indentations, as if something heavy had been placed there. The current owner did not want to be interviewed, saying only that the house has learned to be silent. The Amityville incident is remembered in popular culture as a symbol of post-war American fear, a fear hidden behind the wooden walls of a peaceful suburb. But if you piece together the scattered pieces, from Hexham in 1971 to Long Island in 1975, a strange series of images emerge: rocks, bones, ash, faces, and houses that seem to have memories. No one has been able to prove the connection between the two places, But among the surviving documents of the British Institute for Psychical Research is an unsent letter dated 1976, unsigned. It reads, "An object has left Europe. It has found a new land where humans once thought they were masters. But the ancient spirits do not forget the way back. When humans bring them into their homes, they do not leave, they wait." The house at 112 Ocean Avenue still exists today. The eye-shaped windows have been replaced, the facade painted a different color, and the address has been changed to a different number to avoid tourists. But those who live nearby say that at night, when passing the Amityville River, you can see a dim light from the basement reflecting off the water, as if a yellow light is illuminating something below. A plumber who worked on the house in 1991 said that when he drilled into the old wall, the drill bit hit something solid and hard, then suddenly slid as if it had hit glass. He stopped, looked through the crack, and saw something round and gray, buried in the cement. He quit the job immediately, without receiving payment. The Amityville house has changed hands several times, but the land records still contain a faint, typewritten note from 1976, after the Lutz family left. The text is short, cold, and unequivocal. One item retained for transfer, unidentified stone artifact. No one knows where the object is now. If it is indeed the object found in the basement, and if the analysis matches the stone from northern England, then perhaps the Hexham curse has crossed the ocean, hidden in the cement of a new house, waiting to be awakened again. Looking at the records of the two cases, Hexham and Amityville, investigators noticed another common thread. Those who had touched the object had all left the premises for only a short time, always felt watched, and said that in their final nights they had heard a regular tapping on the wall, 3 times a beat, as if it were a signal from the other side. No one had the object left. No one dared to admit to having seen it, but in an old photograph of the Amityville house in the winter of 1975, zoomed in on the corner of a basement window, you could see a small round object sitting on a cement pedestal, reflecting the flash. The image was blurry, but it clearly had deep, straight eyes. It could have been an optical illusion, or it could have been one of the 2 heads from Hexham, something that had never really disappeared. Because if the words of the 1976 letter were true, those ancient spirits did not stay in England. They have gone further, carrying the memory of stone and the whisper of earth. And when another house is built on the same land, when people continue to dig, continue to open, perhaps they will be awakened again. In 1977, in North London, the Enfield neighborhood was as quiet as hundreds of other post-recession British neighborhoods. Rows of red brick houses lined up, each with peeling iron doors, crooked antennas on the roof, and walls stained with rain. Life here repeated like clockwork, except that in a small house on Green Street, the silence was no longer silence. On the 30th of August 1977, Peggy Hodgson, a single mother of 4, reported to the police that the furniture in her house was moving by itself. She said the bed shook violently, the wardrobe shook, and the banging on the walls echoed throughout the house all night. The police arrived and took a report. While checking the bedroom of her 2 daughters, they saw with their own eyes a heavy chair sliding slowly across the floor. There was no wind. No one touched it. They left without explanation. After that, the phenomenon did not stop. The 2 girls, One 1-year-old Janet and one 3-year-old Margaret became the focus. Janet said she heard knocking on the walls, then footsteps, then the hoarse voice of a strange man in the middle of the night. A few days later, objects in the house began to fly. Toys, pillows, chairs, even mattresses. Witnesses abounded. Neighbors, police, journalists, and paranormal researchers all confirmed that they saw objects moving against the laws of physics. For more than 18 months, the small house at 284 Green Street became the focus of the British media. Reporters pitched tents outside the door. Investigators from the British Society for Psychical Research (SPR) came to record, carrying measuring instruments, infrared cameras, and directional microphones. Among the hundreds of hours of recordings, there were snippets of a male voice coming from Janet's mouth, a hoarse, heavy voice, speaking slowly like a dead man. When played back, the sound formed a series of gibberish words, but in a few moments, fragments of the words could be heard. No one left, and I was here before them. One night, while the team was measuring the electromagnetic field, the clock's hands oscillated violently. The camera automatically took a burst of shots, and in one frame Janet was lying on the bed. In the next, she was lifted into the air, her hair flying back, her pillow thrown off the bed. There was no suspension, no other person in the frame. The photograph was authenticated. Environmental analysts confirmed that no magnetic, acoustic, or pressure wind phenomenon could have caused such a movement. They tested it, but it was not reproducible. Some concluded that it was staged, but no one could explain why the phenomena only occurred when Janet was present and sometimes when she was asleep. By mid-1978, the phenomenon had become more intense. The banging was so loud that neighbors could hear it through 3 walls. Doors slammed, tables and chairs spun. Janet was thrown from bed, leaving long bruises on her arms. In the camera footage, she sometimes spoke in the voice of a man named Bill, saying that she had lived in the house and died in a chair on the ground floor. Police confirmed that a man named Bill Wilkins had died there in 1963. Researchers began to suspect that the house was not only haunted by a poltergeist, a disturbing spirit, but also a gathering place of other energies. An investigator named Maurice Gross wrote in his notebook, "I feel there is more than one entity. One of them is older than man, silently observing, not speaking, just present." The sentence was crossed out, but next to it was a circular symbol with 2 small dots, exactly the same symbol carved into the object found in Amityville 2 years earlier. In the SPR archives, there is a recording that has never been released. The sound was faint, mixed with wind and metal clanging. A man's voice said quietly, "Not the house, it's an object." Another voice replied, "You mean the thing in the basement?" Then the tape cut off. At the end of the tape, a few seconds later, there was a crackling sound, followed by a very faint sound, the rolling of a heavy object on a wooden floor. In 1979, when the phenomenon had finally died down, the investigation team packed up and left the house. In their final report, they listed all the items examined: table, chair, bed, picture frame, lamp, clock. But in the appendix, there was a small handwritten line: "One stone artifact, unidentified origin, sample pending." No one knew where the object came from. In the archive photo, a round, gray object, the size of a fist, can be seen on the table with samples of ash and rubble. 2 years later, the object disappeared from the SPR archive. Later, residents of the Enfield house said they no longer saw any of the phenomena, but there was always an unusual feeling of cold in the second-floor hallway. An electrician said that while repairing an outlet near Janet's old room, The drill bit hit a hard, round object, like a rock, causing the machine to shut down abruptly. When the drill was removed, the tip was worn as if it had been drilled into metal. No one dug further. Historians later looked back at the entire series of events from Hexham in 1971, Amityville in 1975, to Enfield in 1977, and noticed strange coincidences. Each began with the discovery or touching of a round, stone object with a human face, of unknown origin. Each time, the houses containing the object experienced supernatural phenomena that lasted exactly a year and a half, then ended abruptly, without a trace. No one ever recorded the object being destroyed. An internal SPR document noted in 1980, if the memory transmitter hypothesis is correct, we may be dealing with a chain of events that spread, not a fixed location. The object is not bound to the earth. It seeks people. The memo stopped there, unsigned. In the winter of 1982, an anonymous private collector sent a photograph to the London magazine Parapsychologia. The blurry photograph showed a round, cracked object on a wooden table. Beneath it was written, "Recovered fragment, Enfield, 1979. Next to the object was a small piece of paper with handwritten words, "Return to soil." No one knew if the photograph was real or fake. The magazine never published it, but the blurry print appeared in the SPR files. What made viewers shudder was the crisscrossing scratches on the stone surface, as if someone had tried to carve words. When magnified, the scratches formed a line of letters, which together formed two words. Still here. The house on Green Street is quiet now. The owners later said they had not encountered anything unusual, but neighbors still say that on foggy nights, when the wind swept through the street, you could hear a soft tapping on the window, 3 times a beat, like the beating of an unfamiliar heart in a sleeping house. No one is sure where Enfield really ended. No one dares say where the object came from. All that is known is that, since the 1970s, people have occasionally reported finding small stones with crudely carved faces and deep, metallic eyes in various places from northern England to upstate New York. All have one thing in common: they do not belong to any local rock type. One of the latest reports, dated 2013, from a private auction house in London, listed an undated object, carved in the shape of a human head, believed to be a Northumberland collection. Beneath it, a small note read, "Do not touch the surface with bare hands to avoid transferring energy." The buyer is anonymous. The object disappeared from the catalog after just 2 days. Paranormal investigators call this the wake-up cycle. They believe that objects like Hexham heads are not just rocks, but the physical memories of ancient people, preserved in minerals, passed down through the hands of those who dare touch them. When found, they record emotions, voices, fears, and then reflect them back. The house is only a temporary container. What really exists is the memory. In Enfield, the room Janet slept in remains the same structure. The wall has been repainted many times, but if the light is angled, a small circular indentation can be seen, exactly 40 inches above the floor, at the eye level of a child sitting in bed. Under the white paint, perhaps something is still looking out. That is how the Enfield story ends. No answers, no final proof, only recordings, blurry images, and survivors growing old with the memory that something once spoke in the voice of the dead. But if you piece together the facts, a spatial chain emerges. Hexham, Amityville, Enfield. A journey of memories locked in stone, through the ocean, through people, through houses. No one knows where it is now. Some researchers say the remaining object was buried in the garden behind the Enfield house in 1981, in a secret ceremony. A neighbor said that night they saw a yellow light underground and heard the sound of rolling gravel. Then everything fell silent. The next morning, the ground was turned, and on the ground there were two small, round, wet marks, like eyes looking up. The house has been renovated now. The windows replaced, the walls painted white, children playing in the yard again. But sometimes, in photographs taken in winter, through the window of the upper floor, people see a small, dark figure standing behind the curtain, head tilted to one side, silent. Maybe it's just an illusion, or maybe it never left.